Now, resistance occurs in both tan oak and oak, coast live oak. That's the good news. The other bit of good news is that everywhere we look for it, we find it. Now, the harder part about this is that this resistance is incomplete and it is inadequate to save us or to protect the trees that we might care about the most. So what's the bottom line that you should take from this? Resistance is a tool that we can use to manage the disease, and it's one that may help us in a very significant way when we leverage it with other things that we understand work to protect the trees we care about. Now, when I say that we find resistance everywhere we look for it, here's a graphical illustration of what I mean. Resistance is not complete in tan oak, and we never find very much of it. But every stand that we have surveyed for resistant tan oak, every one of those surveys has resulted in the finds of individual trees that are relatively resistant to Phytophthora ramorum. The pathogen simply grows slowly in these individuals. This graph shows our result. Most trees have the average amount of resistance, meaning they're not very resistant. Tan oak is highly susceptible, and most of them, once infected, will die within 2 to 8 years. But some trees, about 5% of them, the pathogen grows very slowly within those individuals, and they are predisposed to surviving the disease longer. Now, what does that mean in terms of management? Well, we can do some experiments in a computer simulation to ask, given what we know about this, particularly if resistance in tan oak is also correlated with lower rates of transmission, what will this mean? And the good news is that in stands that are relatively low density, and particularly stands that do not have bay laurel, we see that increasing the amount of resistance, maybe by selectively thinning trees or even planting trees that have this resistance characteristic, can lead to some substantial benefits in terms of disease management. And particularly, I want to point your attention to the red solid line here, which is a simulation of a stand where, without bay laurel, on the right side here, without bay laurel, and one where most of the trees are resistant, either through selective cutting or through selective planting. So far, these results suggest something that is very promising. Now, they also indicate quite strongly so far, that we can't get to effective management unless we combine different kinds of techniques. That means removing trees that are supporting sporulation and selectively removing those that are the least resistant. We don't know if these computer simulations will match up with reality, but they suggest that these kinds of experiments are quite worthwhile. They have the potential to conserve tan oak and its unique properties within our forest.